Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 70 in the book of Genesis. Today I'm going to title this Giving Your Wife Away, and we're going to learn one of the most morally ambiguous stories of Abraham even in the whole Bible. It's a story where Abraham is going to put his wife at risk. He's going to put himself at risk in a certain way, but he's really trying to save his own neck by putting Sarai in a morally compromised position, and possibly even a sexually compromised position, probably, in my opinion. So, at best, there's some scheming here to survive. Obviously, this is a life and death situation. There's a famine, and it's not just a famine, it's a severe famine. Um, and Abram and Sarai are going to be are at risk from famine, but they're also at risk from people. So let me read here. This is from chapter 12. Now there was a famine in the land. This is chapter 12, verse 10. So Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. So this is kind of the beginning of Israel's conflict with Egypt. Egypt has the Nile, which is why they had food. Verse 11. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, I know that you are a beautiful woman. She's 65 years old, or maybe 75, in appearance. And when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. So say that you are my sister, so that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. So we get no indication that this is commanded by the Lord. And in Genesis chapter 20, in a similar situation with another Pharaoh, in verse 20:12, it says, besides, she is indeed my sister. And then he explains what he means by that, the daughter of my father. So Sarai and Abraham have the same father, but different mothers. So they were very close. They were celebrating, Christmas and Easter together as a family, maybe even growing up together. But he leaves out the big truth, which is she is my wife. So the protocol apparently then was to kill the husband and marry the wife. He says that it may go well with me. In other words, I would survive and even get sort of this bride price thing that's going on. So Abraham, to his credit, is probably thinking, hey, the Lord just told me he's going to make me a great nation. I have to survive this. Because in 12:7, just a couple verses before this, he says to Abram, to your offspring, with a vision from the Lord himself, to your offspring I will give this land. So we're not told if this is done by Abraham in faith and trust in the Lord by this particular mechanism, and if this deceit was of the Lord. To me, it sounds deceitful, and certainly it risks his wife in a sexually compromising position. So, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And in my read, Abraham does not come off well here. Let me continue in verse 14, 12:14. When Abraham entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake, he dealt well with Abraham, and he had sheep, oxen, and male donkeys, female servants, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. So, to Abraham's credit, he is correct. She was beautiful. The Egyptians saw that she was beautiful. How beautiful? Well, Pharaoh level beautiful. Too beautiful for the officials or the military officials or the royal counselors, the members of the ruling class. No, she's too beautiful for that. Out of my league. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this that you have done to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go. And Pharaoh and his men gave orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. So Pharaoh takes Sarah as his wife, it says. There's been apparently some negotiations, some bride price kind of things. and and Pharaoh takes her, as it says, as his wife. So I think there is uh, some sexual connotations here. The scripture is silent on this issue. The same situation happens with another Pharaoh, another king later on, Abimelech, and he flat out says, "I didn't have sex with her. I'm innocent in that regard." But here, the scripture is silent. I think we would all agree, I hope, that the best design for for sex is that it should be in a protected and cherished and celebrated marriage relationship, and not shared before, during, or after marriage. So, speaking of sex, it's interesting in verse 16, perhaps in these negotiations for this marriage, Abram gets female servants. And in chapter 16, we're going to find out what the name of one of them, who is Hagar, who is going to be the mother of Ishmael. So that happens on this trip, is Hagar joins their clan. But the Lord. So the big part of this is but the Lord, and He rides in here to save Abraham and Sarai, and I think it foreshadows the future patriarch Moses with a future Pharaoh and future plagues. So obviously these great plagues get someone's attentions, and to Pharaoh's credit, I think Pharaoh actually kind of responds in an upstanding way. The trouble centers around Abraham, and Pharaoh accuses him of saying, "Hey, what have you?" Pharaoh says to him, "Hey, what have you done with her?" And he resolves and does the right thing in the end. All right, so let's try to draw some conclusions for this. First of all, Abraham doesn't come off well. God is still sovereign. Abraham is not perfect, neither I and neither you, and God is still working a plan. Despite the knuckleheads and the knuckleheaded decisions that they make, there's a moral dubiousness to this particular sort of story, and none of us should be saying, "Oh, Abram gets to mess up, so I get to mess up." It's not proscriptive. In fact, it's an admonishment to all of us. Hey, don't do this. So the possible failure of Abram to trust in the Lord and put his own interests above the Lord, and certainly above his wife, I think this whole story kind of de-elevates the sovereignty of man and elevates the sovereignty of God. So clearly God was with Abraham in Egypt. God is the one that rides to the rescue, and God redeems this bad situation and gives grace. So I'm happy for the mercy of God here. I'm happy for the grace of God here. And I think Abraham, in giving his wife away, gets more than he deserves. He gets the grace of God. Thanks for listening.